At the midpoint of the Big Four conference, the general air of goodwill that marked the opening continues. Russia's leaders still show the energetic amiability that has marked their excursions beyond the Iron Curtain, despite a steadfast refusal to make any concessions to President Eisenhower's proposals for agreement on German reunification and European security. The president, in an effort to break the deadlock, made a precedent-shattering proposal, offering to submit a blueprint of America's entire military establishment to Russia with permission to make authenticating aerial photographs if Russia would do the same. The high point of the conference to date, Ike's action followed an earlier informal incident, which in its way did as much to prove his sincerity and goodwill. Just doing what comes naturally, a habit rare among the world statesmen, Ike ducked into a toy shop to buy presents for his grandchildren, incidentally leaving his startled Secret Service bodyguard behind. The true diplomacy of international friendship in action. The tide of North African revolt washes over Morocco as rebelling Arabs for a time overrun the city of Casablanca, shortly after the arrival of the new French Resident General. In an orgy of destruction, whole sections of the city are set ablaze, completely overwhelming the efforts of firefighters whose only resort is the ancient bucket brigade. In 3 days of almost uncontrolled rioting, scores of vehicles are put to the torch, some with the occupants in them. Shops which had been kept closed by protesting Arab nationalists are burned and looted. As the long smoldering discontent with French rule flares, little escapes the aroused rebels. "80 persons die as rebellious Arabs attack Arabs loyal to the French, who declare martial law and rush in troops from France and other colonies to quell the uprising. Hundreds are rounded up, and prisoner compounds are filled to overflowing as France fights for North African survival." Russian agricultural experts visit a typical Iowa farm, continuing their study tour of America's corn and hog belt. They're greeted cordially, the common interests of farmers everywhere overcoming barriers of strangeness. With their constant following of over 100 newsmen, a dozen visitors inspect the farm. Russia, faced with a sagging food supply, plans to develop corn and hog farming patterned on America's Midwest. A dozen Americans are now in Russia on a similar goodwill visit. Both groups are learning that farmers may speak different languages, but on either side of the Iron Curtain, pigs is pigs. But there's a lot that's different, such as the super-duper sundaes and sodas served up at a typical dairy bar. Scorching summer weather doesn't bother the curious crowd outside, or the Russians inside, eating in air-conditioned comfort. Russia was never like this, tovarich. Moscow skies are filled with the first public display of Russia's newest combat aircraft, startling Western observers with their quantity and quality. The Reds' big surprise was the Bison, their first intercontinental jet bomber, judged the equal of America's best. It's believed in full production, as are the smaller multi-jet attack bombers rated on a par with our first-line Stratojet bombers. New combat helicopters appeared in large numbers, further evidence that Russia's engineering skill and production ability may have been seriously underrated. Russia's major strides toward air supremacy forced urgent reappraisal of America's defense strategy. A shock to the complacent, a spur to the alert. The 9th day of the Tour de France world-famous bike race brings the greatest challenge yet, the lofty hills of the Maritime Alps. There's work ahead, uphill work. The field has narrowed somewhat since the race began at Paris, and by tonight it'll have narrowed down some more. This is the acid test of stamina and endurance. They made it. Well, most of them, getting a big hand from crowds along the way. They're over the hump, cooled by mountain snows. A nice, easy coast down to the Mediterranean coastline at Monaco. From snow to palm trees, and the sympathetic fella with a hose. Inside and outside. Real cool, man. He's been leading the pack all day, but another speedster overhauls him in the stretch and nips him at the finish. C'est la vie. That's life, brother. Here come the bulls, and there go the people. Mix thoroughly in crowded streets and you have the folding of the bulls, ancient sports ritual marking the feast day of San Fermin. To fold bulls, you round them up and drive them to a corral in historic Pamplona, where bulls are raised for the bull ring in Spain. In this country, we do it with autos and call it jaywalking. Somebody is bound to get hurt. Bull pins boys to wall. Pin-up boys on the horns of a dilemma. But this is not the end of the tale. That comes to a mad, merry, maniacal end in the arena. But by this time, the bulls are safely behind bars in the corral. Now, the would-be matadors match wits with heifers with rubber tips on their horns. Compared to the street brawl, this is a picnic. Oh, yeah? Knocks and tumbles are the only consequence, it says here. But in the merry spirit of the San Fermin festivities, everything is born with gay good grace. Who's next?